They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.
Hey!
And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.
I guess I should unmute if I want to open up the show. That seems like a great idea.
Gotta do that.
Gotta love it. Welcome back to the Chop Shop, everybody. This is Ronnie. I can crank the music up high. I can pull it down low. We can mess with the volume, but we're here to talk fantasy football. I'm here having fun, trying to keep this as casual as possible, as we always do on the Chop Shop. And I'm joined by Jeff DiMatteo. What's up, Jeff? What's up, buddy?
Not a lot, man. Just feeling recovered. We had that week off, and I'm excited. I feel like some of the things we want to talk about last week are still relevant this week. And Tennessee looks real good. There's some players we'll want to talk about in the spring that are going to be in the draft. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, my own guys that I doubted, but anyway.
Yeah, I know. Well, we can go back and I can dog on you about Hendon Hooker later, but. I think it's interesting times. We're at the halfway point now, really, in most leagues. You figure, hey, week 7's in the books. Week 14 is generally the kind of the beginning of the playoffs for most leagues. Like, here we go, man.
It's that time of the year where if you're not in the playoff hunt, you're starting to feel like you might not want to play anymore this year, and
move it on to DFS.
Here's what I'll say: if I'm in a league with you, and you want to take your foot off the gas, go for it. If you're watching the show and you're not in a league with one of the two of us, don't do that. Try your hardest all the way to the end. Fight to the death, man. There's no point in bowing down. If anything, you can play spoiler at the end of the season, which is always fun.
I'm absolutely in it. If I can't win a championship in a redraft league, I don't want to just quit out of it. What I want to do is I want to make somebody's life miserable. Like if I can ruin some playoff seeding or if I can knock somebody else out of the playoffs just so that they can share in my misery, I'm all about it. I'm here because misery does love company.
I'll share one story, 1 minute side story. I was in a league with a bunch of people that I ended up disliking. Almost every single person in that league. I
remember this league.
A personal level. And there was a season, I was in this league for 4 or 5 years, and it was year 2, I think, and my whole team got hurt. And I also drafted kind of poorly, but I by week 7 or week 8, I think I had 2 or 3 wins, clawed my way back, made the playoffs, made the championship, lost. But it was so satisfying to be able to pull it off. And the odds aren't great if you're sitting here with 2 wins that you're going to make the playoffs and let alone the championship, but there's a chance. And that's all that matters. We can't control everything.
That's why we line them up, man.
Yep. Well, we had a crazy week. Just in general of football, some super highs and super, super lows. Let's go ahead and get the big one out of the way because it affects dynasty and fantasy redraft both. Breece Hall, Dunzo. It sucks. And I actually was like, he was a guy I was having to eat crow on. You and I both kind of like, I think that maybe a little bit of getting defensively, we went harder on Breece Hall than maybe we should have. But I definitely was vocal about not loving him the way everyone else did. And he's performed pretty freaking well the last few weeks and overall this year. So it's a bummer. And then the roller coaster of being a Michael Carter owner for about 14 hours, you were like, oh, well, look at that. And then James Robinson comes flying out of left field, takes over the backfield, you would have to assume, or at least a similar split to what Breece had, maybe not as much as Breece. But then Travis Etienne is over there like all of this is domino effect. Now I'm the guy in Jacksonville. There's no questions. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a shift in the running back landscape. Now, when it comes to Breece Hall, like we obviously we really had him pegged as the 101 in dynasty, rookie drafts, right? But we were trying to temper expectations. People were kind of making him out to be Jonathan Taylor, and I felt like he was more like a David Montgomery with more burst, Yeah. And I don't know that that's untrue still to this point. My concern, though, is that it's an ACL plus meniscus. Anytime you get ACL plus, that gets a little scary. Obviously the guys on Thursday are going to talk a little bit more about that on the Next Man Up. They'll cover the injuries and the specifics and what you can expect in terms of timetable. But he's done this year. The Jets backfield, they bring in James Robinson. He's not that far removed from an Achilles. Like, they know what he is. This is a Frank Gore style fall forward for 3 to 4 yards type back at this point. And then you've got Michael Carter, who can do just a little bit of everything. He does everything well, but he's not great at anything. And, this is going to be one of those ridiculous 50-50 splits where I think people are going to be like, oh, James Robinson or, oh, Michael Carter. And both sides are going to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And so
one side is going to be elated, but it's going to be hard to predict.
Right. There's going to be, you might as well flip a coin and hope for the best. And if you get it wrong, just be like, well, that's just kind of the way it goes, because that's, the way it goes. When it comes to ETN,
we got tweeted, and I forget who it was, but someone tweeted the Gridiron Ratings handle asking if they should, go Michael Carter or James Robinson rest of the season. I responded James Robinson, just because in the end, in a 50-50 split, I'll take the guy with the early down work.
Mm-hmm.
But
we think it's early down work, right? Like, we don't know this guy.
I don't know.
I mean, mid-season, we don't know what it's going to be. And anybody who says they do know is kind of full of shit.
I know. Well, and that's the thing. And it's not with the one thing we harped on all off season. It had nothing to do with Breece Hall. It had everything to do with Michael Carter being a very, very decent running back, right? Mm-hmm. Not elite. Not nothing, but like he could lead a handful of the backfields in the NFL. Any given Sunday, he could walk into their room, step onto the field, and probably be fine as their starting running back. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with all that. But on the flip side of things, you have the Breece Hall injury that goes down, and in the meantime, you also have this juxtaposition with the emergence of Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker has not only emerged, but he has looked like one of the best backs in the NFL, genuinely, for about 2.5 weeks now. You can pull out a handful of his touches, and that's sort of like, oh my goodness gracious, who is this guy? Feeling that you get, where at least you would have gotten if you had really paid attention to his tape during the offseason. It's showing up. And the Jonathan Taylor Breece Hall comparisons were never correct. He doesn't have the same athleticism as Jonathan Taylor. And I'm not saying Breece Hall isn't athletic, right? He is athletic. But that super high end, like not 0 to 20, not 0 to 30, but like when he hits fifth gear, how fast is he going? That's what is really unique about Jonathan Taylor. Mm-hmm. Kenneth Walker has got the same skills. And he actually ran faster than Jonathan Taylor ever has in the NFL over the weekend. And I'm not going to say that.
Well, go ahead. Let's be careful with that, because I think Walker is a different type of back than Taylor. So, like, for me, Jonathan Taylor, his comp was always kind of an Adrian Peterson type.
Sure.
There's, the thing with Kenneth Walker is that, and we liked him a lot in the spring, is that he was just a different type of player. He was definitely more of the, I don't even recall the comp we put on him. I'd have to go back and look, but it was definitely a speedier back, somebody who uses speed and explosion, because that's what he is. He's an explosive back who uses short speed and intermediate speed to beat you, and he does. He's not going to beat you with power like Taylor can, and he's not going to get you with the long speed and the track speed like Taylor does. But they're different skill sets, but they're both excellent. Like, we loved Walker in the offseason, right? Like, we were all on him, and when people were like, oh, he can't catch, he wasn't asked to. Don't give me that. Like, that's just not his role at Michigan State.
And, like, Jonathan Taylor had the same concern coming out. And so there are similarities in that way, where it was an overblown concern about receiving volume, right?
Right.
The guys either got it or they don't. And then it comes down to how much their coach wants to utilize them in that way in college, or like, what other guys do the coaches have at their disposal? AKA, do I have to use Ken Walker as my receiving back, or can I use this bona fide stud we have at fullback, who basically is a wide receiver that weighs 60 extra pounds? Mm-hmm. Let's use that guy. And that's what they did.
Sure.
His entire tenure there. So I don't know. It's infuriating, but he's looked incredible. I was definitely being hyperbolic. He's not even remotely the same type of prospect as JT. JT is an unmatched prospect in this year's class and last year's and the class he came in. But my bold takes this offseason, 50-50 on him so far. Sky Moore, I'm still waiting on him to do something positive from a fantasy standpoint. He's actually been going backwards with fumbles.
Well, yeah,
But
he shouldn't be returning punts. That's just not what I like. He's miscast as a punt returner, and I'm sure they're just doing that to get him on the field because
I
with the
think
ball in
that's
his
it. They're
hands,
going
he's
to get him touched.
electric. Yeah, they're trying to manufacture touches, and what we're seeing is, we said this all off season and going into the season is that he was going to be a late season, pop, and it was going to be MVS, Juju, and these guys were going to underperform, and we'd start to see Sky Moore kind of displace one or
Now
of
that's
them.
a dangerous thing to say because MVS and Juju had their best games of the season this week.
100%. Well, Juju's had back-to-back strong games now. Right. So
It's not the first time he started off hot too.
Well, he came out with one good game and then he completely crapped on himself for like 5 weeks in a row.
That's a start. And then starting out hot first game.
Well, fact is, the things we've been telling you about Sky Moore, at least in terms of my analysis, was always predicated on the idea that Juju and MVS were going to falter at some point, and then we'd start to see him. With Juju starting to pick up steam, that becomes a problem for Sky Moore. I think it becomes more difficult to get him on the field. It's like I'm actually going to see if I can pull him up real quick on my other screen here. Doop-a-doop-a-doo, Of course, my other screen is my phone right now, so there's that. Let's see. Pop, Sky Moore. Well, maybe I can pull him up here if I can stop fat finger my phone here. Pop, Sky Moore. So here, what are we looking at here? We've got bye week 8, right? Tennessee, Jacksonville, and the Chargers. These are all plus matchups for wide receivers. And then it turns into just a murderer's row of teams that just do not allow a ton of points to wideouts. The Rams, the Bengals, the Broncos, Texans, surprisingly, Seattle, Denver, Vegas. None of those teams allow a ton of points to receivers.
Look, I am 100% okay taking any sort of even end of season high hopes that I had for Sky Moore and just kind of throwing him out the window at this point. I don't think it's because of the player. I just don't think that he's going to end up getting the touches this year unless somebody gets hurt. Those guys are settling into their roles as the season goes on. It's a new system. And so I think maybe I got overzealous even in the industry did in looking at the situation and saying he's good enough to come in despite MVS not being really that great, taking over these veterans and their NFL knowledge and Andy Reid's complicated playbook and integrating himself by week 10, by week 11. I don't know that he's going to be able to, just with the way they're operating on offense. If he does, he'll be the fourth option. And I don't know I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if it's going to be an impact for fantasy or at least one that you can reliably predict if there is one.
What I find interesting, though, still about his usage is that when we do see him lining up as a receiver and the way they target him is that they put him in contested catch situations, and they're usually targeting him on high-impact downs, third down, late in game situations. Now, granted, Mahomes hasn't looked his best throwing those passes. I know one was picked off, a few were knocked away. Like, they're throwing to him in double coverage. Like, I feel like there's some confidence from Mahomes to Sky Moore. I think right now it's a matter of Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy just getting this guy on the field. They've got too much money tied up at other receivers to get more forced into the lineup right now.
If you're a dynasty
owner, it's going to come.
If you're a dynasty
owner,
don't panic. Keep trying to trade for him if you can. In a lot of leagues, for me, I'm running into a situation where people are like, nah, I already invested in this guy. I'm going to hold tight, and that's the smart thing. But he and MVS are the only guys they have on contract in that wide receiver locker room.
Yep. What about let's go from one more to another more. I think more interesting right now is Elijah Moore. Like, this is a guy a lot of people loved, and he balled out last year. Like, this guy looked like another version of like a young Antonio Brown. He came out, he's super silky in the intermediate space, great hands.
It wasn't
electric. Like, it wasn't fluky at all.
Looks good.
And here we are. We've got between Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson. I can't get this guy any targets. And Zach Wilson objectively has been bad. Like, what the hell's going on here?
So the funny thing is, I've been on a couple different Sky Moore.
So you're still
Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore threads throughout Twitter, and they both get kind of brought up. They're both talked about the same right now as by redraft owners. Both Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore owners are saying the same thing, which is, do I drop them? And I don't know. I couldn't really tell you. I feel like if I'm going to drop either, I'm going to drop Elijah right now because he's doesn't want to play for the team anymore. So that made it easier. But before he said, I'm not playing, please trade me, there were people legitimately like wondering if they should roster either of Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore, and I just didn't think that was going to be possible. But here's the thing: Zach Wilson is not going to be the dude long term. I feel comfortable enough saying he might be serviceable in the NFL at some point. It might be for a while. He's not going to be that dude to get your guys what they need to be in fantasy consistently. We've seen enough from him at this point, and it's. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am Jeff DiMatteo as a former like quarterbacks coach and things like that. But I've watched enough football to know what I'm talking about, and I spend enough time with guys like Jeff to at least learn ad hoc kind of what to look for, and it's just not happening with him. Same way I feel about. Well, I'll keep my mouth shut on that one. We'll talk about it later.
Well, here's the deal. If you're pinning your hopes for fantasy success on guys that are catching passes from Zach Wilson, you're probably in for a bad time. You know, Zach Wilson has not shown any improvement in his now, I believe, 17 NFL starts, spanning 2 seasons, mind you. So he's had 2 NFL offseason programs in the same system with the same play caller, same coordinator, mostly the same offense. They've only added more talent around him. And this guy has not picked up any momentum in terms of things like QBR or, completion percentage or on target rate. None of it. He has looked objectively bad in every sense of the term. And here's what's coming up. You've got New England. Now, they just looked really bad against Justin Fields. They made Fields look like a Pro Bowler. So maybe he pops a little bit there. But then you get Buffalo, bye week, Wild Bill again in New England, the Bears, Minnesota, Buffalo, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami. That stretch from week 15 to 18 looks okay, but I'm not interested in Zach Wilson, and by proxy, I'm not interested in his receivers. Like, I love Elijah Moore in Dynasty. You got to hold him. I love Garrett Wilson. Dynasty, you got to hold him. But if you're in redraft, it's time to cut bait. These guys can go away.
So this is great because it leads me into one of the side topics I wanted to talk about, and then we'll jump into a few waiver notes and the 2 main players I wanted to discuss. But I was talking with a relative of mine recently, and they were like, it's interesting that, you have Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady. All, if you were objective and you didn't know their history and you didn't know the future, you'd watch them this year and be like, those guys are done. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm not saying they are, but that's how they've looked from a layman's point of view.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, that is fascinating because the fantasy football landscape this year, particularly at wide receiver, has been all over the place. It has been so erratic. And correct me if I'm wrong in this feeling, it's just a hunch, but I played fantasy football for 20 years, and I can't remember too many years where it's felt this up and down to start off. And then I started to think about the fact that really 6 of the premier names that were providing fantasy success over the last 6 years are just not performing right now. And it then led me down back to what we were just talking about, which was Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, going to Atlanta, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, going up to Chicago with Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. And then the age-old thing that you and I learned a million times over, but people even like us that have played this forever often forget. In the end, you want to have people that are tied to good offenses with good quarterbacks.
It's not rocket science.
Not really predictable has been the downfall of a lot of the quarterback play so far this year. But we could have probably predicted that this offseason banking on Elijah Moore and Darnell Mooney, and also feeling like Kyle Pitts was going to be a thing. I should have been able to at some point to look at that and say, hold on. One of those probably isn't going to work out. Look at who is actually behind getting them the ball. And that's the end of my rant, but that's just an observation and thoughts.
Well, and I can add something to that. So when we think about guys like, the Bears offense, we looked at Justin Fields and we're saying, okay, this is a guy that's going to be a second-year starter. Quarterbacks usually see their greatest level of improvement from year 1 to year 2. That's across the board. You can go back, pull up any of your favorite quarterbacks throughout history. Their second years of starters where you see the most growth. The idea that Darnell Mooney would continue to be peppered with targets held a lot of water. From a process standpoint, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, look, Mooney was the one. We're expecting Fields to take another step. Mooney should get better targets. But because of the other ancillary players, the idea is that, that's the only guy. Maybe you take Kmet because tight end's such a mess and you don't need a ton out of a tight end for him to be functional. Zach Wilson was kind of the same thing where we're saying, hey, here's Zach Wilson. They've given him another lineman, or they gave him 2 linemen. They got him a tight end. They went and got him a first-round wide receiver. They went and got him, they put so many weapons around him where you have to say, okay, wait a minute. We've just loaded this guy up with talent, and he can't do anything with it. He's not functional. And I think the Jets need to really evaluate this kid next season and say, hey, we're going to open up a competition here. And if we're in position to take one of those premium quarterbacks in this upcoming draft, we're going to do it. Or if we can go trade for a guy, if Mac Jones becomes available, we're going to do it. And put yourself in a position to get a reliable trigger man, and don't waste the rookie contracts that all of these position players are on. But that notwithstanding, the Jets are kind of they're winning games. That's fine. Zach Wilson needs to be better if it's going to continue. The rest of the up and down, though, that you referred to, think about the receivers that are tied to all of those quarterbacks you talked about.
That was my point. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Michael Pittman. Just right off the top, those 3 guys were all supposed to be top 24 players, right? Generally speaking. You're getting some love out of Evans. Godwin, if he's healthy, he's there. But Pittman's pretty much evaporated.
Mm-hmm.
He's not getting any looks. And I don't believe Sam Ehlinger is going to be the guy to open him up. This feels like a suck for luck version 2.0 kind of move out of the Colts. They can punt the season, put in Ehlinger and say, F it. We're going to go out. We're going to just see what this kid's got, run him the rest of the year. And if we lose all our games, we lose all our games. And we go get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Right.
And then we've got we had Peyton Manning, we had Andrew Luck, we got all these other veteran guys didn't work out. Let's go get another kid in here like those other guys were and build our franchise for the next decade and a half. So I just think, it's interesting to watch all these quarterbacks kind of collapse simultaneously. Hell, even Russ. You got Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's
the Broncos offense as a whole. Even when Javonte was healthy, you couldn't get the split right from them. I mean, you have 6 or 7 offenses as a whole this year that felt like bona fide like locks for production. Just haven't done it. And and it's made everyone feel like I have felt like a poor analyst, an amateur analyst, if I would even want to use the A word with myself. Somebody who loves this.
Oh, you're definitely the A word, but not the one you're thinking of.
I have felt like I didn't know what I was talking about for a decent chunk of this season, but I look at other sites and I'm like, everyone is saying the same thing and getting it wrong.
Exactly.
So, whatever.
Well,
let's do real quick. Let's do one side note. Tom Brady. Sure. You brought him up the other day. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about Tom Brady and Joe Mixon. Those 2 guys. Do you want to start with Brady or start with Mixon?
I'll tell you. Why don't we start with Mixon? We'll go Brady and then we'll talk waivers.
All right. Here is Joe Mixon's over the last 3 games, his splits. So running the ball, he's averaging 13 carries, 60 yards, and about a touchdown every 3 games. Not great.
So a third of a touchdown per week.
Yeah. And then, 0.3. And then receiving the ball, 4 receptions, 22 yards, third of a touchdown a week. Basically, if you look at it, this is a guy right now playing in an offense that is clicking, that is getting you about 17 touches for 80 yards and a half touchdown week in and week out. Mm-hmm. That's fine if that's your running back too. Boy wasn't drafted like that. And I know because I own him in 3 leagues. I love Joe Mixon, but he didn't look good to start the year. I've seen every Bengals game. He looked kind of sluggish and hesitant. I don't know. That happens. Players get acclimated to the season again. He's looked fine for the most part. But if you go back and watch Joe Mixon highlights even from just 3 or 4 years ago and you look at his top end plays so far this year, I don't know. There's something going on with Joe. And I don't know if it's him getting tired of his usage or what's going on with that team or just they're clicking right now and they don't need to use him the way that we would all want him to. But the year where Joe Mixon led the league in touches and had all the yards and everything, we're not getting that again, at least as long as Zach Taylor's in Cincy.
Well, here's what I'd counter that with is that in PPR, in straight PPR leagues, Joe Mixon's still the RB11. He's that fringy guy. He's still technically a 1. But
that's exactly where he is.
Well, and if you're saying, hey, this is my RB1, and you're drafting in a way where you're saying, hey, look, how do I how do I have an advantage every week? Joe Mixon doesn't give you an advantage really any week against any opponent's other RB1. The hope is that he gets you a touchdown and keeps you competitive. But I mean, these matchups haven't exactly been cush. He ran into the Cowboys. The Jets have been surprisingly tough and stingy against running backs. The Saints have been kind of tough. The Falcons have actually been surprisingly tough. 4 out of 7 games are against tougher opponents, right? He laid an egg against, Baltimore, against what I would consider to be an easy defense. And I say an egg, he got 13 points, but I felt like that matchup against Baltimore should have been a 20-point week for him.
Right.
So, I mean, he's on expectations, and then he's got some good matchups coming up. He's got Cleveland coming up, Carolina, bye week, Pittsburgh. Like, those are 3 games right there that should be really strong weeks, strong outings. If you're feeling froggy and you feel like you need to move him, this is the time to do it. Get him to have that good game against Cleveland and then see if he can spin him plus, another minor asset to get an upgrade at running back. But I mean, look, this has been reliable. I'd rather have a good running back and a great offense and get a reliable 15 to 17 a week when the playoffs start.
Yeah.
Because I don't need a boom or bust RB1, coming in. I don't need Najee Harris coming in and getting me 6 in the playoffs, and costing me a championship because, I bought the name brand. I'm cool with regular, consistent production, even if it's not sexy. And Joe Mixon, he ain't sexy.
Not right now. Yeah, I guess that it over exaggerates like his lack of high end production, because I look at him, and as you and I have talked about on this show and on other shows and on the phone for years, we love Joe Mixon, and I always felt like he had like this super elite profile that had the potential to be like a true, like consistent top 5 fantasy guy. But you know what?
6 years ago that was true, but he's 26 years old now.
Yeah, old.
Well, yeah. The thing of it is, everyone forgets that age 25, your age 25 season, that is the peak physical year for running backs, period. He's 26. Whatever his prime could have, would have, should have been has already been at its peak past. He's still in his prime, but his best physical condition year is now behind him.
Yep.
This is a guy where we need to say, okay, what is he? How many touches is he getting? How efficient is he being with these touches? And then in the offseason, we release the running back workload reports, and we do all that, and we give you a chance to look at it. That's something to monitor, because Joe Mixon hasn't seen a ton of work. This is a guy where he's probably going to be productive up until he's 30, but he's never going to be that super sexy player where you're like, man, yeah, he's going to give you 22 a week, 24 a week. No, he's going to get you 16 to 18 a week. It's going to be reliable. It's always going to be that fringy RB1, RB2. You're going to take him. You're probably going to be hoping for more. You're never going to get it. But you know what? He's not going to let you down and give you a bunch of goose eggs that are going to cost you a championship.
I tweeted 2 or 3 weeks ago, Joe Mixon will always be my low-end RB1 daddy. No one liked it. 0 interaction. So I'm just throwing it out there again.
It's still just a weird visual there, I guess.
All right. Let's move on to, on the other ends, a trickier man of culture, Tom Brady.
International man of mystery.
International man of, drama, apparently. I don't really give a rat's what about his family drama. I do care that it affects you on the football field, no matter what anyone says. That stuff affects the way you can prepare, how focused you can be off the field. Therefore, it affects you on the field. End of story. But I think it's a little more than that with Tommy. He's a million years old. Eventually, this was going to happen. And at this point, it feels like we spoke about this on the phone, and I'll hand it over to you after this. I said that it feels like this guy is not only not putting in the work that he used to off the field with his teammates. And that is not that's not a Colin Cowherd hot take. That is literally documented. He's going out of town. He's dealing with family stuff. Like, he's not around. He's taking more time off than he used to. The Wednesday thing doesn't bother me. That's normal for veterans. And I don't feel like he's playing as well on the field in general. And I think they're both combining for Todd Bowles not being a great coach in the first place. It's a disaster. Take it away.
I mean, that team was built before Brady got there. Okay. Godwin, Evans, all these guys were there. They brought in Fournette, but we talked about it. Yeah, exactly. That's why he went there. Easy championship, right? You go in, basically it's a pre-made thing. He can walk in, be Tom Brady. bang championship. He's missing wide open receivers. And his receivers aren't doing him any favors. The very first, drive of the game against Carolina, he hits Mike Evans in what would have been like a 70, 75-yard bomb. He gets him on a post route, hits him square in the hands, and Evans just drops it. Yep. Inexplicable. If you're like me and you bench Geno Smith in favor of Tom Brady this week and you lost by 1.5 points, you're pissed because Geno Smith outscored Tom Brady by like 5 points in 6-point touchdown leagues.
Unbelievable.
And it's weird to me to say those words in that order in the year 2022 or any other year that Geno Smith outscored Tom Brady by 5 points in fantasy. But here we are.
Well,
he's still attempting. Are you ready for this? I'm just going to read this. This is the last 5 weeks. He's attempted 42, 52, 52, 40, and 49 passes.
It's ridiculous.
Here's his touchdown count. 1, 3, 1, 1, 0. What? Tom Brady has had one multi-touchdown game, and it happened to be against the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that really, arguably, they can't cover Godwin, Evans, and all them guys anyway. But you're going to tell me you couldn't put up a passing touchdown against the Carolina Panthers? A team that just sold Christian McCaffrey and is basically saying, we're in the Bryce Young sweepstakes. Here we go.
Yeah.
You get Baltimore in a short week. This is a team that looks really rough. If you're stuck with Tom Brady, you're stuck with Tom Brady. I'd be trying to make a move to get out from underneath that, though, because as much as, we hate to admit it, this is probably it. He's, whatever's happening with his divorce and all that is, my folks are divorced. I got divorced when I was a lot younger. Drama comes with that, right? It's hard to focus. There's a lot happening. He's got kids involved. There's just probably hundreds of millions of dollars being divvied up and properties and everything else. This is stressful, right? This is a big deal. And
he's having to worry about an entire team's worth of salary cap.
Yeah, 100%.
Times 2.
I think for fantasy, it's time for us to say, all right, you know what? We're putting Tom on the bench. We're cutting him. We're done. It's time to walk away. Because if you are going to ride or die with Tom Brady, you've got Baltimore in a short week. Okay. You've got the Rams, stingy. You got the Seahawks. Okay. That's probably a plus matchup. You get a bye week, and then you start gearing up for playoff time. You've got into Cleveland. New Orleans is pretty tough, especially against Mike Evans. The Niners, the Bengals, Cardinals, Panthers, and then Falcons week 18 if your league's crazy like that and playing week 18 football. But do you really want Tom Brady against Nick Bosa? Yes, that's a yes or no. Do you want him against the 49ers pass rush?
No.
Exactly. Do you want Marshawn Lattimore covering Mike Evans in week 13, where he has shut Mike Evans down? That shit's all over Tom Brady. What's that?
I want it for the drama.
You want it for the drama. Fine. Okay, the Seahawks, they're plainly faster defensively than Tampa Bay is on offense. The Rams, Aaron Donald going after, third string guards and centers now in the middle?
Yep.
Do you really want Tom Brady in any of these situations?
Too. That's the big thing that
we did.
The offensive line died before the season started, and everything has kind of followed suit with that.
Right. But, the question you have to ask yourself is if you're rostering Brady, you have to look down the barrel and say, I got Brady on a short week after 2 straight duds. Do I want that on a Thursday night game where Thursday night is notorious for screwing everybody over? Then you get the Rams. Do you want them against Aaron Donald company? Seattle, okay. I can see you wanting to play him against Seattle. Bye week, Cleveland. You got him going against Myles Garrett. You want Garrett and Clowney with their ears pinned back coming after him against that O-line right now? You got the Saints with their ability to cover. Then you get the 49ers, Nick Bosa and company. This is not a good stretch coming up for Tom Brady.
No thanks.
I think, the drama, the matchups, there's way too much bad stuff going on. I think we should all be fully expecting him to get out of this season, retire once and for all finally, and be done. Because unless something miraculous happens, he steps into the Lazarus pit in a Batman cartoon or something, and suddenly regenerates himself as a 24-year-old, it ain't getting better, folks. It's time to walk away.
If I could hop into a time capsule, just go back in time, I would take the next 15 seconds of what I'm about to say and send it to myself 10 years ago. I'd be so happy and sad at the same time. And that is that in the year 2022, the Tom Brady saga has finally started to end.
Started to end. Well, yeah, until he goes out and he throws 3 touchdowns on Thursday Night Football. We both look like idiots.
Let's not. I agree with everything Jeff has said. I am also going to throw in there that man will go out there and he will put up stats in 1 or 2 more games this season. It's going to happen.
Yep.
But
it'll be when he's on your bench also. Sorry.
But
it's just how fantasy football works.
He gets divorced and it goes so badly that the only thing he can do to keep himself from flying to the moon is play football. He's probably retiring this offseason. And then it's over. And anyway, congratulations, 2013 version of me. I know you're really tired of that, man. And 1-yard goal line passes are rough. But bad news is Russell Wilson's still playing and he sucks now. Good news is Tom Brady's probably done.
Tom Brady was a long-standing veteran when Russell Wilson showed up. Russell Wilson collapsed the same time Tom Brady did.
Yep. Well,
ouch.
Not unique to Russ.
Yeah, Mr. Unlimited needs to figure it out. But that's a story for another episode.
All right, let's do waivers real quick. You ready?
Right.
I got this big spreadsheet. What I did, got on like the 5 biggest fantasy football names you can think of. And I was like, what are y'all saying? Hilariously, they're all saying the same thing.
Shocked. It's my shocked face.
Yes. Offensive waiver wire content is my least favorite thing to do because at this point, you can just Google it on your phone.
Defensive isn't any better. We'll be doing that on the next show.
Mm-hmm. Defensive, though, at least you can still you can swing and miss or swing and hit and do it by yourself. Offensive waiver wires, 500 people have said what we're about to say, but Michael Carter, if he's available in your league, obviously pick him up even with the James Robinson thing. Gus Edwards, of course, with the J.K. Dobbins news. And Jonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, we talked about him on the phone a little while ago. And then also, I picked up Jonta Foreman. I didn't really care. Pick him up if you want to. I'm not really bothering with either of them. And then I've got a list of all these guys, but I'm not going to go through every single one. The other guys. Paris Campbell was on 3 different websites. I'm not going to say which ones they were. But he was the number 1 wide receiver. And I looked at it. I read through their analysis. It was pretty sound analysis. However, I swore I would never touch that sauce again in week 4, whenever that was. So go ride the Paris Campbell train if you want to. I will not be joining anyone on that one.
Yeah, dude, that's like getting on the Paris Campbell train. That's kind of like going after that that ghost pepper ultra hot, face melting sauce. Oh, I don't need any more of that in my life. I'm good. That's a hard pass for me.
Yep. Tried it once. Not for me.
Yeah. I don't need to touch that again. I don't need to put myself through that.
Marquise Goodwin was brought up a few times. I think it's an okay ad.
With no DK, that's interesting. I think that you got to remember is a Goodwin, and he's such a unique case because he's an Olympic class athlete. And generally speaking, players fall off because of a lack of athleticism. When you're that much faster and agile and everything than everybody else on the field, when you drop off, you're still that much faster than everybody on the field.
No, you're just as fast as the faster guy.
Yeah, you slowed down to being an NFL player. So Goodwin is interesting because he's a savvy veteran. He's kind of like, for those of you that remember Ted Ginn at the end of his career was a really functional player. He was fantastic with the Saints. He really helped them a lot. He became a very reliable part of what they do every week. And I think that could be where Goodwin is the next few weeks until we get DK back. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if there's been any reports on that in terms of where DK is.
Thankfully, he's not. His knee is intact.
Well, that's good.
He's probably not playing this week.
Yeah, and I love some DK. As long as he's not seriously hurt, we're good. But, I mean, the guy here is probably going to be Lockett. And what's going to really chap people is the fact that if you've got Lockett, you're probably not getting 11 targets, but you're probably going to get some shots, on the right side of the 50. That's what you can start to look for is they're going to say, all right, well, here we go. We're going to plug in, a little wheel pass or wheel route or a crosser or something for Lockett and let him break loose for a touchdown here because we need it. He's going to be the difference between touchdowns and field goals for the next couple of weeks. And so I would expect to have more of the schemed up stuff for Lockett.
I can see that. I think Goodwin's interesting. He's one of the guys that was on every list.
It's gonna be a 7-target guy. Probably if DK misses 2 games, he'll be a 7-target guy.
And then, you know what? That's fine. Like, I agree. It's a good ad. That's why I mentioned him, and it's why
Sure.
he's being brought up by everyone else as well.
Mhm.
Especially now that we're in bye week hell. A guy that can get you 5 to 7 targets a game, that
It's
is
a
a
winning move.
playable asset for sure.
Mhm.
Wan'Dale Robinson's the other guy. Now, this is a guy that we brought up 3 weeks ago. And we're just kind of like, it's going to come. It's going to happen. Tony's going to, have his issues, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
What I didn't expect, what you didn't expect, what not a lot of people can claim that they expected was the Giants, to be functioning as well as they are. And
Didn't see that coming.
Wan'Dale hasn't done it yet for fantasy, but that first half this Sunday, did you watch that game?
I did not, because I know the Giants' record, but I still don't view them as a particularly good football team. I just can't
I
get
was
past the
watching
mental
to
block
see
of
what
it.
Saquon was doing, and I kid you not, it felt like every other time they threw the ball, he was targeting Wan'Dale.
Yeah.
So, like, it's coming.
Well, I mean, this guy's got 12 targets in the last 2 weeks. I mean, he had 4 and then 8. Like, he's getting the looks. I mean, he had 6 catches for 50. I mean, you said he hasn't done it for fantasy. Well, he got 12 and 11 in back-to-back weeks.
Well, I mean, doing it for fantasy is, like making an impact where you can feel like he was a difference
Right.
for you. At this point, he's just filling your roster the way that you would want a bottom of your roster guy to fill it.
Here's the expectation. If you're grabbing Wan'Dale thinking like, oh man, he's going to pop and go for 30, you're probably setting the bar a little high. If you're adding him saying, man, I need to fill a bye week spot, I need a dude that can get me between, 10 and 15, Wan'Dale's your guy. He's going to be the kind of guy that has the speed, because they go against Seattle in Seattle this week. He's the kind of guy that has the speed and quickness to go up against some of the wheels that Seattle has on the back end. And they can go ahead and find ways to get him the ball on those shorter routes where he can go and make something happen. And so it's going to be a situation where, I mean, dude, if he's getting you between 8 and 12 yards a catch, like that's going to be a great spot. And that's where he's lived the last 2 weeks. So Wan'Dale's a nice player, but again, we're tempering expectations here. It's about what you're trying to add to your roster, right? These have to be strategic ads. Don't just go add bodies for the sake of adding bodies, unless you're trying to actively block another, manager from getting a player.
Sure.
I can appreciate that, right? That's strategy.
Sure.
But a guy that you haven't mentioned so far is one I'm really surprised by. So I don't know if you're at the end of your list or if you have another guy, but I have one I want to
30
add.
people right here. I'm just picking from them.
Okay.
Give me him.
And this one actually comes with a huge dose of humble pie. Greg Dulcich.
I literally was about to bring him up.
So that's been your guy, right? And I've openly in our Discord channels among all the Gridiron Ratings folks basically told you to piss off when it comes to Greg Dulcich, because I was so tired of hearing about this guy. He has amazing hair and a wonderful mustache. Don't get me wrong. However, this Broncos offense has been miserable. It's hard for me to get behind a rookie tight end. Number one, they're slow to develop. Number two, a bad offense. 3, a quarterback who's not performing well. And say, yes, let's go Greg Dulcich. Turns out I was wrong. Dulcich out here balled out. He only got 11 points. I say balled out. He had 9 targets, 6 catches, though, last week. No touchdowns, but 6 for 51 out of a tight end right now. If you're getting 11 points in PPR out of a tight end in today's landscape, that's a winning move. Dulcich should probably be added. I know I'll be trying to add him in leagues I'm in, especially if I'm trying to fill a bye week spot for another player. Or if I've got an injury. You don't know what's going on with Darren Waller right now. You can go get Dulcich and you can plug him in. And if you've got, Brett Rippin out here, which, by the way, I think we should call him Grippin and Rippin. Can we do that? He targeted Dulcich 9 times against the Jets. We got the Jaguars this week. I really think that's, Jags don't allow a ton to the tight end, but I think some of that's due to the tight ends they played. So give me Dulcich in London for a touchdown this upcoming week in London. Let's rock and roll.
I love it.
Wheels up on him. So my apologies for crapping all over you and your Dulcich love. I should not have done that. I am now eating crow. I don't know what that really looks like, but I'm metaphorically eating it.
To be fair, yes, you did. That was one that we very much disagreed on. But my biggest disagreement with the industry as a whole was on Albert O. It wasn't actually Greg Dulcich. It was like, this Albert O guy ain't it. He's just athletic. He's explosive in a straight line. Has never impressed me as a good fantasy football or a good football player. And the only thing I'll take credit for is that in like May, my hot take that everyone at GR shit on me for.
I was like, Ronnie, if you bring up Dulcich one more time, I swear at everything.
I know, but I coupled it with that what's going to happen is Albert O is going to get supplanted halfway through the season by Greg Dulcich. And that was my hot take. And here we are. I'm not going to claim like I had any insider knowledge. It was just a gut feeling. I'm not a savant. I'm not going to even pretend like it was good analysis. I just saw something and I liked it.
I would tell people to go back and look at our draft coverage on the Chop Shop from, like days 1, 2, and 3 of the draft. And we talked about Dulcich. Like, what did we say? What did we have? Like an Owen Daniels comp on that guy? Like, that wasn't a fantasy slouch. Like, this was just a guy that we thought had, reliable. At least my view, reliable player. He's a good receiver, but he's not going to wow you with athleticism and all this other stuff. He's just a really good football player, right?
Right.
And I didn't think that was going to be a bad thing. I just didn't see anything really coming of it rookie year. Here we are, back-to-back games with double-digit points. I love it. We got a question.
It is though. He's a guy. I agree. Pick him up. The other two guys on for tight ends, K. Dotton is actually another guy to bring up. He's worth throwing in there. I don't really want to though. That's like a last.
You love K. Dotton. You love him. We were in so many mocks. You were all about him. But we won't spend time there.
Jawan Johnson's a guy that has been off and on waiver lists this entire season, both for Dynasty and Redraft.
Hard pass.
I think that he's worth throwing if you're in a super deep offensive league for Dynasty. But yeah, for Redraft, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I'm out. Yeah. I actually have a question that popped in. We should probably hit this real quick. We got Mark chiming in with a quick question here. Mark, we're not going to attempt to butcher your last name here, so apologies for that. But with the Brees injury, I need a flex and wondering if I should trade one of my studs for 2 players. I have Pickens, Foreman, and Pacheco on my bench with JT, Mixon, and Chase as my studs. Ooh, I love having JT and Chase on the same team, and Mixon's your 2. Woo! I like that. It depends on the 2 guys you're going to get, Mark. I mean, if you've got a guy that's going to give you 2 guys that are going to plug into your starting lineup in exchange, for one of these guys, I look at it, say you traded JT. JT's getting you 18 a week when he's healthy or whatever that looks like in your league. You got to make sure you can replace his points and get adequate points over the guy you're replacing into your lineup. So that becomes a really tough task. I don't know that I'm in the mode of trading studs in a playoff run. Now, if I have to build a roster to hope for a playoff run, then yes, I would do it.
I agree with that. I also think that we brought him up a bunch of times over the past month, but Raheem Mostert, like he's a guy. This isn't I told you so or anything like that. However, if you were watching the show a month, 5 weeks ago, hopefully you were able to pick up Raheem Mostert and have him somewhere on your bench. He's the type of guy. There's situations in week 3, week 4 where, like we had said, week 1, sit on your free agent acquisition budget. Week 2, probably sit on again. This year's weird. And then like week 3, week 4, week 5, our motto was this is where you have to make these beginning of the season moves that'll help you in your playoff push. And with the Brees injury, that's the type of thing where if you don't have it already built into your roster, like your only option is to try and make a trade that works. But I don't know who I would try to trade for that's performed poorly so far that I could then get value from. And that's the only way you could make a trade if you gave away Mixon right now, for example. Like, who are you going to move Mixon for? Lat Murray? Or not Lat Murray. Excuse me. Najee. I'm sure you could get the Najee energy to accept that with another throw-in piece, but is that going to help you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm focused on building the starting lineup at this point in the season. Let's get down the stretch, build the starting lineup. Depth be damned. Right now, it matters who you're going to have in the playoffs and how you're going to go ahead and dominate those few weeks. But thanks for the question, Mark. We actually have another one here from Jack. Poor Jack has gotten beat up by injuries here. It's been a rough ride for him. I have a question about a trade. Keenan Allen and Juju for Derrick Henry, as I need RBs really bad. I had Javonte, Eli Mitchell, LMAO. I didn't know LMAO was in the NFL right now. I know they weren't making music, but
there's an F in that damn name, sir. Get it right.
Oh, right. Sorry. That's not appropriate for this show. It's a kid show. Let's see. We got Sutton,
Curtis Samuel's been a godsend this year.
Yeah, even after the trade. Ooh. Well, Keenan Allen has looked. He
Who's
rough,
Jettis?
Right? I'm assuming maybe that's Justin Jefferson.
JJ.
Hey, Jack, if you're still with us, pop in the messages there. We want to make sure that Jay Jettis is maybe Justin Jefferson. But all
right. So first of all, I don't mind moving Keenan Allen right now. I'm actually a fan of that.
Love it. It is Justin Jefferson on Jay Jettis. Yep. Yeah, he has a ton of, he says, so I have tons of wide receivers right now. Look, yeah, I'm moving Keenan. I'm moving Juju. I'll take Derrick Henry all day. Juju's been white hot, but that's the piece that the guy wants. You're really removing Keenan Allen's dead weight right now because he just hasn't been
name.
good.
Yeah, you're dumping a name right now, which is good. You should be trying to trade Keenan anyway.
Yeah, it's a situation where with the hamstring, we don't know where he's going to be. He's got a bye week. There's a lot happening right now. Is he going to be a guy that helps you? Derrick Henry definitely is. And you've got enough depth going on at wide receiver that you're okay. So you can afford that. This is an area, hey, look, we always talk about it in trades. Trade from strength, right? You're trading
I
from
would
strength.
do the trade. We both said do the trade.
Do it. Go get Henry. We love that for you, Jack. Good luck, man.
So much easier to replace wide receivers too.
Heck yeah. I love that. So we've only got a couple more minutes here because then we got to go and hop on that other
I
show.
need to go. I need to go to the bathroom and do everything, get ready for getting defensive. So why don't we close out? I don't really have anything else to add. I'm going to throw out 3 more names, just hot names. Close out the show with a few names. Tyler Algier, if he's still sitting on your waivers, he's worth picking up. Throw whatever guy that you're questioning and just put him at the bottom of your roster. Don't love his athleticism, love the volume, and they only threw the ball 13 times last week. If they're going to keep keeping Mariota under 20 throws a game, they'll run it. Tyler Algier might be useful in the flex here and there. Kyron Williams is the other guy. Kyron was brought up everywhere.
I don't mean to cut you off. We got a quick question here from Lamb Cup. I was trying to respond to Jack in there, but I think he might have taken one of my answers as his. Should he trade Devonta Smith for Keenan Allen?
No.
He's 5-2. No, keep Devonta Smith.
No.
Lamb
do
Cup,
not do that trade.
The yeah man do that for sure was for Jack. We're telling him.
Oh no, yeah, Henry. Lamb, don't do it. No,
yeah, Lamb, do not trade Devonta Smith for Keenan Allen. Keep Devonta Smith. We love the look of that offense. Sorry that the chat's gotten a little out of control here. We're trying to keep up with all the individual comments here, and so. Jack wants to know if we'd still do it for Chubb. Yeah, I'd do it for Chubb too. Chubb's a locked-in stud. If you're moving those 2 wideouts, Jack
on that team. We'll see what he's like, but he's going to be better than Brissett probably.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people asking questions simultaneously. Lamb Cup, keep Devonta Smith. Do not trade him for Keenan Allen.
Former Hubbard, rest of Scott. I'd say Hubbard. That's my gut.
Yeah, I'm going Hubbard. It's definitely all Hubbard. And then Jack would said we'd still do it for Chubb. We're good with that. But yeah. Sorry, guys. The questions came in hot and heavy there as we're trying to wrap up. So we just want to make sure we get to everybody.
I'm sure many of you are on here right now waiting for getting defensive. Hang around. We'll be on for that in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, if you guys are around, we'll take on some more questions on getting defensive.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we can we just leave this open and then we can come back and look at the chat and get on getting
I don't know while we're doing the other show if that'll work. But I mean, here's the thing. If they're on our YouTube channel, they're probably going to see Getting Defensive. So, guys, we're going to hop off here. Join us on Getting Defensive if you have more questions. We're happy to help you out. We're just trying to keep on the schedule here because we've got to get going at 8 o'clock on that show. But we hope to see you guys over there. Ronnie, any final words?
Nope. Kyron Williams, pick him up if he's there. He might be useful over the next few weeks. I'm out.
I love it. All right. Hey, we will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. You gonna hit the button?
I don't know how to work this thing again.
They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.
Let me unmute. Jeff left. He made a huge mistake. I can say whatever I want now. First of all, go Vols. Go Vols. Right here. Go Vols. We're going to beat Georgia here in a couple weeks. And lastly, I hope you guys all have a wonderful week. And I see there's one more comment here. We'll answer it on the Getting Defensive. That's all we got. Bye.